Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a couple weeks since I've done an overdress video, but we're back. We did a Yu-Gi-Oh video the last 2 weeks. They actually did pretty good, but I want to get back to some Cardfight Vanguard. For anybody who's been watching the channel, we did an overdress video about 2 weeks ago where we did our first game of Set 2 Bruce versus Set 2 Eugene, and it was a pretty interesting matchup. But I'm here with game 2 of that series. I figured I would continue it for you guys, of course with some post commentary since this is pre-recorded, but this is a live game. This is game 2 of that series. If you guys remember, Eugene won last time, so we're going into game 2, and this time my buddy Gary, piloting Bruce, is actually going first. If you guys enjoyed the video, please drop a like, subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and we do hobby videos every Friday, so I would definitely love for you guys to interact, comment, and let me know some of your thoughts on the games. And shit, let's jump in, let's check it out. Alright, so Gary's going first. He draws for turn. He made sure to draw this time. He discards a crit trigger to ride. I'm gonna apologize now. I forgot about this, but there's some issues with seeing some of my drive checks and my drop zone up in the corner. Again, these games were pre-recorded before I realized this, but we will be fixing the camera angle next time we record. But let's continue. Alright, so he rides grade 1 skill, calls out his grade 0, soul charges 1. Then he plays Brother Soul to soul charge 2. Sorry, that happened while I was talking. We just discard 1, ride our grade 1, get the draw off the grade 0, and swing. That was a crit trigger. Sorry you couldn't see it, but it goes right into Gary's next turn. Discard, ride grade 2, move the 0 back in, draw a card, swingeth. Drop checks nothing. We lose Sunlight Punishment, which kind of sucks. That's a really good card for this matchup. Bruce doesn't have an Inherit Plus engine, so a card like Sunlight Punishment that can just nuke the board is really good. Discard a card for Randor, soul charge off the grade 1 skill. We're going for a little bit of an early rush. Again, for anybody who doesn't know my philosophy on this deck, what we've got here is that grade 2 gains 5k. My opponent has 2 or less rear guards with an 8k boost behind it. That's a 23k line. Great numbers. Just short of pretty much being unblockable at grade 2. But we swing with Randor, counterblast 1. When Randor's skill is Vanguard rear guard, when your opponent has 2 or less rear guard, you soul charge 1, he gains 5k. So he's already 15. We get the soul charge, he takes the damage, and then we swing 23, which he is forced to perfect guard or go to 4 damage. In this case, he goes to 4 damage. His hand was 2 PGs and then all combo pieces. Alright, he rides Bruce. There was a little exchange here where he wasn't sure about some of the newer cards, so I just cut it out. But he ends up just swinging because the majority of Bruce's support requires your cards to be in final rush to get their full power, which is the biggest weakness of Bruce. You have to go your first 3 turns basically doing nothing. We just guard with a crit trigger for 2 to pass. One thing I've been doing with Eugene a lot lately is staying at really low damage because I don't really need it. Unless I'm trying to bank on a Tensa Steed, most times I don't need the damage. We go into Eugene, Randor skill, it's just draw, drop zone to the soul. He has no rear guards to retire, so we just call a booster to get us to 21, and we swing. He PGs. Again, there's our twin drive, grade 2, grade 3. We swing 23, and he chooses to PG this again rather than going to 5. I mean, I was saying okay with that. I'm at 1, he's at 4. He just dropped 2 PGs. That's 4 cards out of hand. He's at 4 damage. But here's where things get interesting. For anybody that missed our talk last time's game, these 2 cards are the big 2 cards for Bruce. So that grade 1 is Mabel. If you're in Final Rush and it's boosting the Vanguard, you can counterblast 1 to give your Vanguard an extra drive. It's pretty bonkers, getting 3 drive checks a turn. Definitely a target for retire. Leonard, if you're in final rush, it gains 5k, and when it attacks everything in the column. And then if it hits, you can soul charge 1 to call a unit from your soul to an open rearguard circle. So it's another bonkers card. It helps you build the board. You can take out rearguards with it. Like it's kind of gross. He calls a booster for it, so we can start soul charging. So he swings. He actually swings at our column. He soul charges 2 off of the grade 1 skill. That's a set 1 grade 1. When it boosts, you can soul charge. If you're in final rush, soul charge 2. You got a buttload in soul. So we decided to guard the grade 2, but let the grade 1 get hit. Because in total he's swinging for 23, so we guard 25. If we had guarded the 15k on the grade 1, then we would have needed another card to guard with. So he soul charges 1, and then decides to call a second Leonard out. That was a misplay on our part. He actually thought that he had to soul blast for it. We learned right after this that he had to soul charge. It doesn't really change much of the game state. But now he's got another Leonard with another 5k. He still has plenty of cards in soul. And he swings at our Vanguard's column. Now this is an interesting move we had to make because of our plans for next turn. We actually guard the grade 1 and let the Vanguard take the hit. But we do get a damage trigger, putting it up to 23. Luckily, Bruce, Mabel, neither one of them gains a power boost. So even though he does have an extra drive, that is still a 21k line. He's deciding what he's going to pull out of his soul because he swings Vanguard. He counter blasts 1 from Mabel to get an extra drive, and then he soul blasts 5 to stand his front row. Leonard in the front row is great because even if he restands it, it still gains its +5. So even by themselves with no boosters, they can still hit for at least minimal numbers. So in this case, I have a damage trigger. I decide to no guard because he has 3 drive checks to get a trigger or the attack doesn't hit. And if he has to give it to the Vanguard, that means the rear guards can't hit anyway. First check, nothing. Second check's a crit. He gives all effects to the Vanguard so the attack goes through. And then he gets another non-trigger. We get a crit, but this time we give the power to the rear guard, so that way neither of his Leonards can attack my grade 2. But he still swings at the Vanguard column to take out the grade 1. We let the grade 1 die because otherwise he would have just swung at it again and we would have just wasted a card out of hand. Now it's 4-4, so we gotta make a counterattack. He just added a bunch of cards to hand. We Persona Ride. $10k front row. Cycling through the hand, deciding what we're doing. Here's another misplay that I made because I was still trying to figure out the best way to use these cards. So I rest both of these, retire one of his rear guards, give 10k to the Vanguard. I use Nado's skill to pop another card. I should have rested the grade 2. Here's where I misplayed. So I didn't know that Jabrakio could only restand when your opponent has 1 or less rear guards. So I should have used the other grade 2 as the Vanguard cost and then used Jabrakio's skill to retire another rear guard. I had enough cards in soul to use both effects, and then I could have still used Eugene's second effect to try and refill the rest of my board. Jabrakio would have been restanding, but I try to use Eugene's skill here to try and fill my back row. Unfortunately, the top 3 were a bunch of cards for the front row. We put all the cards into Soul, but we decided to call the grade 2 because we did put in one of the grade 2s. The way I figured it is, at least this way, I'll have Jabrachio to intercept with, and then I'll already have the grade 2 to replace it afterward. But then I realized that Jabrachio can't restand unless my opponent has 1 or less, so we just swap places and continue anyway. So we swing 33 to Vanguard. We don't hit any triggers. He takes 1 damage, goes to 5. Now we swing 25. Both of my rows are 25. I mean, I do like that I can do that because they're 25s without boosters, but at this point he just drops 2 cards to guard him. He does not Persona Ride, but he does call a grade 3 and another Mabel. He does not have enough cards in Soul to really get going. The most, even if Leonard hits, the most he can Soul Charge is 3, unless he hits both of my rear guards, in which case he can Soul Charge a second guard, which would have worked, but this time he swings at the Vanguard. He's trying to, we're at 4, so he's trying to push for damage. He Soul Charges 2 off of his grade 1. It's 23. We 15k it. He swings at the grade 3, moves the grade 1 to Soul, draws a card, Soul Charges 1, and gives it. Now he has the 5 cards in Soul. Gives 10k to the rear. We guard that with a 15k. Now here's something cool. So he kind of blasts 1, Soul blasts 5, restands. Does the same play he did last turn. Has the extra drive. One of the cool new things from set 2. You guys who have been on my channel for a while know that I run 4 front triggers in my build. This was why. Well, besides the fact that Eugene doesn't hit big numbers, this was the other reason why. I had seen that these triggers were coming in set 2. They are front triggers that gain an extra 5k shield if your opponent's at grade 3. So I knew with the limited defensive options we had, I was going to be running 4 of these. So I had already put 4 into my deck for set 1, just as a way to get used to using front triggers. This puts me up to 33. He's swinging 21. That is a 2 to pass off of 1 card. That is fantastic. Let's see what happens. No trigger, another Mabel, no trigger, and then he gets a heal trigger. The worst trigger he could have gotten right now. So he recovers 1, gives the power to Leonard. That is now restood. Now Leonard is swinging for 25. He's asking me how many cards I have in my Soul, so probably deciding if he wants to swing at the rear guard or not. He swings at the Vanguard with the 23. We eat it, don't get a trigger. He swings 25. We end up PGing that. And I believe we had 1 card in hand at this point. We got the Persona Ride, thank Jeebus. We use Jabrachio's skill, Soul Blast 1, Rash Jabrachio. We only had 4 cards in Soul after that, which kind of sucks. I didn't want to have to use all of Eugene's. I didn't want to use Eugene's skill in the case that I'm not able to rebuild a proper board. I wanted to try and just be able to fill a back row, but we were so limited on the cards in hand. So we take out the intercept. We attempt to push. This is just 23 to Vanguard. He's got 5 cards in hand with 4 damage. He no guards it, and we do not hit a trigger. The struggle. He gets a crit trigger, putting him up to 23. Now we swing at 25. He's got 6 cards in it, I'm sorry. So that's a 5k guard for that, and a 5k guard for the other one. Guard with the trigger, guard with the trigger. And now he gets to push. He only dropped 2 cards out of his entire hand, so he just went plus between the 2 turns. Crazy. He calls out Eden. Now, this, I don't know how I feel about this order. This was the reason he decided on this build to not run extra copies of Bruce. Granted, after our match, he decided that he's going to run Bruce because Persona Rat is too important a mechanic. But the way this order works, it's a grade 3 order. It costs a counter blast. You draw a card, you have to call a card from your hand, and then you give your front row 10k. It almost works like a pseudo Persona Rat, but it doesn't. Your front row doesn't keep the 10k, so if your rear guards get swapped around, they don't get to keep the 10k. It's only whatever's in the front row at the time. And the card you draw, you have to call it. Well, if it's your last card. But regardless, you have to draw a card and then call a card. Whereas Persona Red, you get to keep all the cards in hand. It's good. It's just, I don't think it replaces Persona Red. Not to mention, Persona Red also helps you build up the soul for Bruce, which is a soul-based deck. But now he floods his back row because he's pushing for game. We're at 5 damage. We only have 4 cards in hand. He's going in. I thought he caught him on the Mabel. No, there she is. We have 2 intercepts, which does help. He's running ridiculously low on deck. I mean, if we survive this, we pretty much were able to win. But he swings Vanguard first because he can't use Bruce's skill, so there's no reason to swing with the rear guards. I guard with my over trigger. The only way he's getting through it is with an over trigger. He also has triple drive. First check is his over trigger. So he gives all the effects to Vanguard. For anybody that doesn't know, the Dark State's over trigger also gives your Vanguard plus 10,000 at crit for the rest of the game. This late in the game, it's not a big deal, but in this case, when I guarded with my over trigger, I guarded 63,000. He pushed through with 100 million. And then he draws a card, binds the trigger. His next 2 drive checks were nothing. But you take the damage, and it is not a heal trigger. And that is the end of game 2. Now, as you guys can see from that game, once Bruce gets rolling, the offense can be really oppressive. Even the fact that I was retiring his rear guards, he was able to keep on drawing so many cards with the extra drive checks, call out cards with Leonard. And like I said, once he realized that he was misusing the cost and that Leonard Soul Charge instead of Soul Blasts, it made it even easier to use. So it was pretty tough. And then hitting the over trigger for game, it just left a bad taste in my mouth. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think of this game. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you guys saw any misplays, of course, let us know. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also, it's been brought into my attention that you guys might like to watch the entire match in one shot. That would make the video really, really long. That's the only reason I haven't done it. I guess that's what other YouTubers do. It's not like Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you can fit like 3 games in a 20-minute video because they're so short. Vanguard games go for a lot longer. But if that's what you guys would prefer, let me know in the comments and I could readjust how I do the format. But anyway, that's game 2. If you guys want to see game 3, again, let me know. If you guys want to check me on social media, those links will be down below. But that's it for me. I'll see you guys tomorrow with some more videos. Later.
I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want, so I'll take it on. I've made mistakes, but mistakes make you strong. Let's break it down for a minute. I want the crown, I'm gon' get it. You hear me loud, man, I'm winning. Yeah, Charlie Sheen will be grinning.